Subsequent upon this approval, we are preparing a comprehensive schedule of all the requirements for each of the security services for presentation to the National Assembly for consideration. It will be recalled that for a number of years, Nigeria had been in discussions with the United States government for the purchase of Super Tucano aircraft under a direct government-to-government arrangement. Recently, approval was finally granted by the United States government, but with a deadline within which part payment must be made. Otherwise, the contract would lapse. In the expectation that the National Assembly would have no objection to the purchase of this highly specialized aircraft, which is critical to national security, granted anticipatory approval for the release of $496,374,470 US. This was paid directly to the Treasury of the United States government. I'm therefore writing seeking approval of this House for the sum of US $496,374,470 US, equivalent to 151,394,421,335 naira only, to be included in the 2018 appropriation bill, which the National Assembly is currently finalizing. Balance of the requirements for critical operational equipment is still being collated for the different security services and will be presented in the form of a supplementary appropriation bill in due course. The Honorable Minister of Defense and other appropriate officers will be available to provide further details as may be required. Well, thank you, the honorable members, for the usual cooperation. Please accept the assurances of my highest regards. Yours sincerely, President Muhammadu Buhari.
Mr. Speaker, my point of order is a constitutional point of order. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, particularly sections 80 and 81 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, the said sections has to do with issues of finances and expenditure, and then the power and control over public funds in the state called the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I beg to read these said sections, which are very succinct and clear. Section 80, particularly subsection 2, reads, no monies, emphasis on no, shall, again, emphasis on shall, be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation except to meet expenditure that is charged upon the fund by this Constitution, or where the issue of those monies has been authorized by the Appropriation Act, Supplementary Appropriation Act, or an act passed in pursuance of Section 81 of this Constitution. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, subsection 3 reads, no monies, emphasis again on no, shall, again emphasis on shall, be withdrawn from any public fund of the Federation other than the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, unless the issue of those monies has been authorized, has been, not shall be, has been authorized by an act of the National Assembly. 4, no monies shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund or any other public fund of the Federation except in the manner prescribed by the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, from this section of our law, there is no language of anticipatory approval. That is not the language of our law. There is nowhere in our law that we have issues that border on anticipatory approval. That is the letter you have just read, Mr. Speaker. The letter you have just read to us talks about anticipatory approval. It is a correspondence, yes, but my dear colleagues, if you remember, just Tuesday last week, this issue came up, and we referred it to the House Committee on Ethics. But today, the function we ask that committee to perform is to look at this expenditure, whether it was actually incurred or otherwise. Today we have been told, admittedly, in black and white, that the expenditure has been incurred, even without the approval of the legislature. It is in black and white by Mr. President and signed, communicated to the National Assembly. I don't think that we have any cause to continue to sit down and allow things like this to take place. What is our function as members of National Assembly? First, we have powers over the purse. And clearly by the letter read by Mr. Speaker, that power is completely removed from these hollow chambers. We cannot, let me ask a question. You are talking about anticipatory approval. Is this National Assembly a rubber stamp? Must we approve whatever comes from the executive arm? Now, if we fail to approve, what happens? Accepting without conceding, there is anything like anticipatory approval. Where the approval does not come, expenditure has already been incurred. What happens? We are supposed to be watchdog over property of Nigerian people, including the fund of this country. But today, it is as if the watchdog can only bark but cannot bite. Not only that we cannot bite, we appear to be asleep. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, this is a clear evidence of what has been happening in the system in the past. This is only a singular case. It's only a singular case. And it is again another wake-up call on us. A constitutional infraction as serious as expenditure without the National Assembly clearly runs foul of this constitution and is an impeachable offense. And let me also say that there is no misconduct that is more serious than this kind of infraction. No excuse whatsoever, no matter how beautiful that excuse is, can allow this fly in any country whatsoever where you have a democracy. It is only where you have an autocracy that this kind of situation can fly. If we're talking about security issues, for 3 years now, there is no day in this country that people are not killed. It is not this one that will solve our entire problem. My dear colleagues, I think I have to call on this House. Let us not continue to sleep and allow things continue to go this way. We represent a people. We have a function. The legislature is supposed to be the watchdog. Please wake up from this slumber. I propose that we commence impeachment of Mr. President based on this very serious constitutional infraction that Mr. Speaker has read to us this morning. That is my position, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman, rules and business.
Mr. Speaker, you have just read a letter from the President. And
silence, please. Silence, please.
You read the letter from the President. Honorable Chinda has raised a point of order based on that letter. Mr. Speaker, by our rules, a letter of this nature constitutes first reading. It is first reading. I mean, solid arguments from Honorable Chinda, but it's like putting the cart before the horse. The truth of the matter is that second reading will have the opportunity to strike this down, going by the argument. This normally, appropriation, in matters of appropriation, is communication. This one is communication and it acts as first reading from the President. So we must do things right. That is my position, Mr. Speaker.
Which rules?
Silence, please.
So,
silence, please.
the Chairman rules and business of the opinion that
please.
This is like a first reading, and Okay. Point of order. Okay, Madam, point of order.
Our rule cannot supersede.
Mr. Speaker.
Silence, please.
Mr. Speaker, I want to read section 1(1) of the Constitution. This Constitution is supreme, and its provision shall have binding force on all authorities and persons throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Then section 1(3) said, if any other law is inconsistent with the provision of this Constitution, this Constitution shall prevail, and that other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. So even if what the chairman business rule read is true, that there is a rule which says this, my brother, Honorable Chinda, raised a constitutional issue, section 80, subsection 2, 3, and 4, which is very, very clear. I so hold, Mr. Speaker.
My colleague has raised a constitutional point of order, and the Constitution of the Federal Republic is supreme. And the issue he raised borders on our responsibility as a parliament. The president has spent funds without parliamentary approval. He brought a letter here today that he will do $452 million Nigerian money without approval of parliament. And somebody is quoting our order. Which order? Which order? Which order allowed the president to spend public funds without approval? We shouldn't sleep on that. We should wake up to our responsibility. And this is the time to tell the president that we are prepared, we are elected to serve our people, and we are prepared to serve our people. What he has brought, we are not going to take it. He has openly confessed that he spent public funds without approval, and is now trying to go through the back door to seek our approval. There is need for this house to reply him and point out to him that he has breached the Constitution, and he should be ready to face the consequences.
Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that two wrongs don't make a right. We are very right in our indignation. Everything in that letter is something that can instigate anger. There is no doubt about that. But let's make haste slowly, because we have our order of doing things. Message from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If it's going to require debate, as I believe this shall, it is normally slated appropriately. And I believe that the best thing we should do now is that, having said whatever we have said, keep our gunpowder dry and be ready when this matter will be properly slated before us. This is what I urge, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I concur with the submissions made by the Chairman Rules of Business. It is very trite. Though the Constitution is the grand norm of the land, is the supreme law of the land, but it is still the same Constitution gave us the power to regulate ourselves. And it was sequel to that power that was given to us by the Constitution to regulate ourselves that we now enacted the rules to regulate our conducts and proceedings. So we should adhere to the rules governing our proceedings before debating this matter. But I also believe that this matter is very weighty. This matter is very weighty and should be subjected to proper debate based on the rules of our procedures. Thank you.